Hey there.
What up?
How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Great, man. I figured I'll get decked out in your hat, the U
I
shirt.
see, I see, I see the lineman swag. I like it.
Yeah.
That's
How
what's
you
up.
been?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good, good. Just surviving, right? These days, that's all you can do, right?
I feel like I'm on house arrest.
I know. I know. It's
You can't leave the house, but I'm making the most of it.
That's it. I see you got a nice cigar going on there. I thought of that. I said I might
I
go
got-
outside
gotta
and talk
keep-
to him outside and have a cigar too. So, first of all, I wanted to wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I don't know if you saw it, but what I'm trying to do, I have a big number of followers on Instagram. So what I'm trying to do, it's a combination of two things, right? Locally, I'm talking to local business owners here in Southwest Florida, giving them an opportunity to kind of talk about their business and how they're dealing with the current, situation and how they're adjusting to it, right? And that kind of gives them an opportunity to, just talk about their business a little bit, right? And hopefully help them with customers and all that. But at the same time, my forte is kind of football, right? And I'm taking the time that there's a lot of people at home, a lot of people on the internet these days. So I figured that this would be a perfect time to try to set up calls like this. I have followers from all over the world. I have a lot of football players, a lot of coaches that are following me all over the world. And, obviously knowing you and having talked to you before, I thought you'd be a great person to talk to and just have you kind of walk us through a little bit of your career. And as you go through, I'll ask you some questions, some tips on, guys that are playing right now, starting to play, what they can do and certain things like that. So very informal, just a conversation about football.
Well, I tell you what, the draft is only less than 2 weeks away, and I talked to a lot of up-and-coming draft picks that are going to be going into the draft, and most of them are on edge because they've never had to deal with this kind of situation.
Right.
I'm actually dealing with a couple of guys right now that are trying to put together their pro days, with all the facilities closed and with all the parks closed. They're having a hard time trying to put together tapes, that they can send to NFL teams. So most of the stuff that they're doing is makeshift,
Yeah.
Most of the guys are doing stuff in their backyards. They're running 40s in their backyards. They're doing L drills and they're doing short shuttles and broad jumps because they don't have access to the facilities that are necessary to do the combine stuff because most of these guys weren't invited to the combine. So I'm trying to do what I can to keep them inspired because it's a different world that we're living in right now, and most of the guys are having to adjust to the stuff that's going on today with the COVID virus.
Yeah. We had so recently in Brazil, I was fortunate enough to sign up a deal with the CFL too, where they are partnering with us, and we did a combine in Brazil just recently, where actually the CFL was down there, and they picked two Brazilians to go to the CFL combine. So we have two players that are going to go and try it out. But obviously with the coronavirus, everything stopped. And, I keep sending these guys messages and say, keep them working out, keep motivated, trying to keep them motivated, because it's going to return. We don't know when, right? But it's going to return, but hopefully sooner than later, right? But it's hard. The guys are working and, and they're just so excited to get into it. But it's hard when you don't have a set date too, right? It might be in a month, it might be in 2 months, it might be 3 months, and that makes it hard. Especially on the CFL is a little different than handling a little different than the NFL is. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit and kind of ask a little bit of your background. So like where you're from, where'd you go to high school? Obviously, I know where you went to college, but kind of walk us back through a little bit of your background, if you don't mind.
Well, I was born in Washington, D.C. I was raised in Orlando. I moved to Orlando when I was 10 years old. I didn't play high school football until my senior year. I only played 1 year of high school football. The reason why I only played 1 year of high school football is because my mom was an educator. My mom was a principal, a guidance counselor, and a teacher. And my mom, and she put the burden on me to where I couldn't play football until had a 3.0 grade point average, which meant that I was the biggest kid in high school that could never play football. So you can imagine I didn't get many dates when I was in high school because I'm a big dude and wasn't playing no football. But I think my mom to this day, for the reason why she didn't allow me to play football, because, the academically, she put me in a position where she knew that college was going to be a strain. So she put the burden on me in high school to get my grades up to where I got my grades up where I graduated at Evans High School in Orlando with a 3.75. So I had the skill set, not only on the field to play football, but had the skill set academically where I could go to University of Miami and graduate. And the only reason why I was recruited by the big time schools is because I had a great senior year. But also I had the grades to where I could go to any school in the country, and I chose Miami.
Awesome. And did you ever consider any other school? Was Miami everything that you kind of wanted in choosing going to school?
Well, listen, to be honest with you, I went to Miami because of my recruiting visit. I mean, listen, anybody that goes to Miami, you're gonna have a good time. I promise you, great time. I had a great time. We were staying I was staying at the Fountain Blue on South Beach with me and my family, and my host was Melvin Bratton. Melvin Bratton took me out in his car, and the first song I heard was a Two Live Crew song that I probably can't mention on the air, but it had something to do with somebody say, "Hey, we want some."
Yeah, I know exactly what song you're talking about.
So I heard that song, and then I went to a couple of clubs, went to a couple of spots. The one thing that was appealing to me about Miami when I went there is because everybody there was so in tune to being the best. I wanted to go to Miami because there was a level of excellence there that I had never, ever succumbed to. I mean, those guys were all about winning championships, and I wanted to be a part of that. I mean, I wanted to be a part of that legacy. I wanted to be a part of the guys that wanted to excel to be the very, very best. In those days, back in the 80s, University of Miami dominated college football. Yeah. And I had no idea that I could make an impact on that, but I just knew I wanted to be a part of it in any way, in any capacity I could.
Awesome. So obviously you got into Miami. You played all 4 years in Miami, right? And you won 3 championships in the 4 years that you were there, 87, 89, and 91. Am I correct? Yeah. Those are the years, yeah. Tell us a little bit of your experience at Miami, playing for Miami. Obviously, like you mentioned, it was the best program in the nation for the time that you were there for the 4 years. And there's not a lot of people that have have achieved what you have, right? To win 3 national championships. It's very limited. So if you can kind of share what that means to you, and also, what it meant to play at the U. As you know, I'm a big U fan, so this is the part that I'm really interested in.
Well, listen, I tell you this much. When I went to University of Miami my freshman year, I remember walking into the weight room, and it was like walking into it was like a biker's gang. I mean, everybody was all ripped up and sweaty and intimidating. And I walked through the weight room, and I was in fear of my life, to be quite honest with you. It was like going into I've never been to prisons before, but it was like going into the prison yard, and everybody there just looked rough, tough, and ragged. And I was saying to myself, how in the hell am I going to survive here 5 years at Miami? And I was terrified at the guys who were there, but something in my spirit told me that said, look, Leon, the only way you're going to survive here at University of Miami, you've got to outwork everybody here. Because you got to remember, and hey, listen, I had Ed Reed. I did a radio show down in Miami for the Super Bowl. Yeah. I did a radio show in Miami in the Super Bowl, and I had Ed Reed on the show. And I didn't know, just like myself, Ed Reed was a 2-star recruit, wasn't highly recruited. So was I. I was a 2-star recruit. So I knew if I went in University of Miami, I had to do everything possible to make myself stand up and stand out. And that's what I did on the field, in the weight room, in the film room, in the classroom. I knew that Miami was so elite that the only way I could survive is that I had to compete each and every day, and it made me a better player for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's, we're talking about Miami and having all the players that they had and having all the talent that they have. But that's true for any place that you go, right? The only way that you succeed is if you put all your heart and soul into it, right? And that's a lesson for everybody that is watching, right? If you want to stand out and succeed, you have to put your heart and soul into it, and you give up a lot of the things. I'm sure when you first went the first year, you thought of all the parties you were going to go and all the clubs and everything, but then pretty soon you saw that it's not going to be as much. I'll do some of it, but I gotta work hard. I gotta study. I gotta go to the gym and all this stuff. So I'm sure you change up a little bit, right? Not to say you didn't have your fair share of fun. I'm sure you did, but
well, I tell you what we did. When I was there, we had a healthy medium. My first 2 years when I was at Miami, we had Jimmy Johnson, and Coach Johnson didn't mind you having a good time. Going out, being respectable, don't get in any trouble. But when it was time to work, it was time to work. When it was time to grind, it was time to grind. When it was time to compete, it was time to compete. Because Jimmy Johnson, he didn't want anybody on his team that was not, they didn't have the mindset of winning. If you weren't there to win, he didn't want you there. Yeah. Because he had a philosophy where he weeded out the weak, which meant that Jimmy Johnson put us in the position, practice-wise, conditioning-wise, that where if you weren't strong mentally enough to play there, you won't probably be going. Our practices were intense. They were 3.5 hours. Our conditioning was another 45 minutes. We ran gases. We ran 110s. And if you survived all of that at Miami, then you were essentially built in to become a Hurricane, because everybody was not going to wear that orange. It was not going to wear that orange, green, and white, because that's the way he set it up. I don't want to say he set you up for failure, but he set you up for success. If you survived what he put in front of you, then you were going to be a Cane forever.
Awesome. And so in '87, that's when you won your first national championship. What was the experience like? So were you a sophomore then? When you?
No, I was a true freshman.
A true freshman?
I was a true freshman. I was redshirted, so I was a true freshman. So, I mean, that year in 1987, I was on the scout team.
Yeah.
So I was on the scout team, and I went up against the #1 defense every day in practice, and it made me a better player because of it. And I knew if I could compete against the #1 team and the #1 defense in the country, I know I could play against anybody on Saturday. Yeah. And those guys, they whooped my ass. I ain't gonna lie, they whooped my ass. Yeah. My freshman year, they whooped my ass, but they whooped my ass to prepare me for what was ahead of me down the road, and I learned from it. So, I mean, to all those young cats out there that don't want to take an ass whooping, sometimes an ass whooping is good for you.
It wakes you up, right?
Ultimately, the best.
Yeah. And then, so '89, you were a junior, and then that's when you won your second national championship, '89, and you felt that '87 had prepared you for that, taking all the beating that you did, and then '91 you were a senior, but then a redshirt senior, was it?
Yeah.
And you won your third title. So then you got drafted. Was it 11th overall, right, by the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, I should have went higher, but that's okay.
11th overall with the Steelers. And how was that? How was that transition going from, obviously the best program that you had at the time, but going to the NFL? How did it change? In the way that you prepared, that you did things. How did your life change in that sense?
Well, you know what? To be quite honest with you, my best draft story is it was draft day in 1991. This was when the draft came on at noon. So the draft came on at noon. So me and my dad got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We walked the neighborhood to kind of reflect on where I came from. We walked the neighborhood I grew up in, whatever. We went and had dinner. We went and had breakfast. And so when we came back for breakfast about 9 o'clock in the morning, we went to the house, and there was like 30 to 40 reporters outside of front of my house or whatever. And they were asking for an interview, and I wasn't sure that I was going to go in the first round, so I told a lot of the media outlets that I wouldn't do an interview unless I got drafted. But there was a particular guy who was actually there, who was a sportscaster in Orlando, by the name of Stuart Scott. Stuart Scott was Orlando sports broadcaster before he made a big time ESPN. So he came up to me and he asked me, Leon, when you get drafted, can I get the first interview? So I gave him the first interview. But I wasn't sure I was going to be a Steeler, essentially because about 10:30 before the draft started, I got a phone call for Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson had taken a job from the Dallas Cowboys, remember, in '89. So in '91 he had the job, and he called me. And Jimmy Johnson called me about 10:30 in the morning and asked me, "Hey, Leon, how you feel about being a Dallas Cowboy?" I said, "Yeah, Coach, I'm cool with it." He said, "Well, Leon, you going to hold out?" I said, "Coach, I ain't going to hold out. If the money good, if the money's right, I'll be there at camp." He said, "Well, Leon, we got a representative of the Dallas Cowboys and going to be at your house, before the draft." So this guy comes to my house, about 6'6", burly white dude with a cowboy hat and boots. He had my jersey on his back. He went downstairs to the den and started negotiating with my agent. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be a Dallas Cowboy. I was all good with that because the Cowboys had the 14th pick in the draft. So when the draft comes on at noon, they go through a bunch of draft picks. We get to about the eighth pick in the draft, and I get another phone call from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Bill Cowher calls me up and says, "Hey, Leon, we got the 11th pick in the draft. You're going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers." So I'm concerned. I'm saying, how I'm going to be a Steeler when I got the Cowboys in my house negotiating my contract? So I said, okay. So with the 11th pick in the draft, the NFL commissioner comes up and says, with the 11th pick in the draft, we select Ed Searcy. So he blew my mind because he said my name wrong. He said the biggest moment of my life as an NFL player, he says my name wrong. So my family goes crazy and everything. And Pittsburgh selects me at the 11th pick overall. So the Cowboy guy tears up my contract back there with my agent. And before he left, he had my jersey with my name on it. It was a Cowboy jersey with my name on it. I asked, "Hey, man," I said, "Man, before you leave, why don't you give me that jersey? You don't need it anymore." And the Cowboy guy turned around and looked at me and said, "Hey, Leon," he said, "understand this." He said, "You're a Steeler now. A Cowboy, I never give a Steeler nothing." I said, "What the?" I wanted to kick his ass right up out my house when he said that. But that was my draft story.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. So then, obviously, you moved to Pittsburgh. How many years were you in Pittsburgh?
I was in Pittsburgh for 4 years.
4 years.
I was there. I was with the Steelers for 4 years. I left the Steelers in free agency after we lost the Super Bowl to the Cowboys, the Super Bowl 30.
Funny enough, to the Cowboys, huh?
Yeah, we lost to the Cowboys because our quarterback got colorblind. He forgot what color jersey were. The interceptions to Larry Brown twice, not once but twice.
So, how was the transition though? As far as playing, going from college to football, did it change a lot the way you were practicing, the way you were doing things, or because you came out of a program that it was already a very strong program?
Well, you know what? I think the best thing that ever happened to me when I went from the college to the pros is that I had already been acclimated to how tough practices was.
Yeah.
Okay, because at Miami we practice like a SOB. All right, we practice hard, whatever. I think the biggest thing that I had to deal with was the speed of the game. Yeah. And how intense the game was. I tell people all the time, my first real experience to what the NFL was all about is when I was a Pittsburgh Steeler. The Steelers had me on scout team because they were pissed off because I held out all the training camp, so they had me on scout team. So I was running the scout team and I was playing tackle, and we ran a counter tray. And the counter tray is when the guard kicks out the end, and I pull up on the linebacker. And I pulled up on Greg Lloyd. And I gave him my stuff. I gave him the funk. And usually when I give people the funk in college, I run them over.
Yeah.
But I gave Greg Lloyd the funk, and he didn't move. It was a stalemate. And I said to myself, damn, this is the NFL. I don't care how good you were in college. It doesn't prepare you for how fast and physical it is playing at the next level. So that was my welcome to the NFL experience, me pulling on Greg Lloyd and me giving him the funk and him not really moving when I hit him.
Nice. So obviously after After the first year, you get adjusted. You're there for 4 years. From the Steelers, you go to the Jaguars. Am I correct? After leaving free agents from the Steelers, you go to the Jaguars. And how was that? I mean, how was changing organizations within the NFL? Did that kind of obviously it's different organizations do things differently, but is it that much of a change, or does it? You've been with a couple of different teams on the NFL. How does that change for a player?
Well, it changed. Well, the interesting thing about me in free agency is when I came out as a free agent. The NFL had me as one of the top 5 free agents coming out. I was the #1 offensive lineman coming out in free agency at that particular time, and I told my agent that we had just lost the Super Bowl, and I told my agent that I needed him to do whatever he needed to do to make sure that I was a Pittsburgh Steeler. All right, because I thought we had some unfinished business to attend to because we lost a close Super Bowl to the Cowboys. So we go into free agency. A couple of weeks go by, and there's guys behind me getting paid. And I'm asking my agent, hey, bro, I said, you got guys behind me getting paid. I said, what's the deal? And my agent said, hey, Leon, the the Steelers don't think you're worth the money we asking for. And I ain't believe them, of course. I'm young and arrogant. I'm saying to myself, hey, I don't believe you. So my agent, unknowingly, the Pittsburgh Steelers, he called the Pittsburgh Steelers, me on the 3-way. And me not understanding the art of negotiating, the Steelers ripped me. Steelers say I wasn't this, I wasn't that. And so when I got off the phone with my agent talking to the Steelers, I said, MF the Steelers. I said, I can go anywhere and have success. Not knowing that my agent had he played me like a fiddle, all right, because he had already had a team lined up for me. So when he called me 2 days later, my agent said, hey, man, I got a team that wants you to come play football for me. And I said, who? He said, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the first thing that came out of my mouth when he said that, I said, the Jaguars? I said, the Jaguars suck. I said, I'm not coming to Jacksonville. I just left the Steelers. I'm going to go to. He said, no, Lee, I need you to go to the Jaguars. So I went down to the Jaguars. I met Tom Coughlin. I met Wayne Weaver. They seemed to be committed to winning, and they wrote me a big check. Don't let nobody fool you now. The money was important.
Yeah,
money was very important. But that's the reason why I left Pittsburgh and went to the Jaguars. Not only because they sold me that we were going to be competitive, and they wrote me a big ass check. So I ain't gonna lie about that.
Yeah. And then how long were you in Jacksonville for?
I was in Jacksonville for 5 years.
5 years. And then after that, you still kind of went through the Ravens and Dolphins. Am I correct?
Yeah, you know what? I tell you what, it's on my resume that I played for the Ravens and the Dolphins, but I ain't really play for them. I practiced for the Ravens and the Dolphins. I didn't play not one game for neither one of those teams. So yeah, I practiced for both of those teams.
Awesome. So after you retired, so the Dolphins was the last one of the NFL that you practiced with, and then you retired. What do you do once you retire, and how is retiring from the NFL? I mean, you hear a lot about, guys can't get away from football, or others go the other way, right? They want to run away from football and not be so involved. I guess I'm trying to kind of understand what was your feeling once you knew that you weren't going to play professionally anymore? What did you want to do, and what did you do?
Well, you know what? Every player says that once they retire from football, that they're going to enjoy the lap of luxury. They're gonna stay at home. They're gonna play golf. They're gonna spend time with the kids. They're gonna have picnics with their wife. They're gonna go on long cruises and getaways. But none of that really happens because eventually you get bored as hell. My first year out of the league, all I did was travel, golf, spend money, hang out, drink, and indulge in the pleasantries of the NFL life that I accumulated. But I got old after a while. So I did a whole year of that. And then after I did that, I was like, I need to do something with my life. I can't spend the rest of my life doing this kind of stuff. So I eventually went into coaching. I went into coaching. I coached at FIU. Yeah. I was the offensive line coach at FIU for 4 years. And I had a great time, coaching. And that just seemed to be my calling at that particular time.
Awesome. And then after that, what do you do these days? I mean, so obviously I know that you have the clothing line. I also know that you're.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I can tell you what I'm enjoying doing right now. I'm a sports talk personality for a radio station here in Jacksonville called 1010XL, XL Primetime Lunch with Leon, 92.5 FM. I've been doing that for the last 2 years. I do color commentary for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. I do their preseason games, and I do their pregame and postgame shows, and I do their midweek shows where we talk about the Jaguars. So I'm enjoying life right now. I've got a couple of companies that a startup that I'm moving forward with. I've got a company called Real Men Block, which is actually a sports apparel line for offensive linemen. Right now it's just T-shirts and hats. And I'm eventually going to get into the specifics of offensive lineman training and equipment and facilities. That's somewhere down the road, but I'm just building my brand right now, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying life.
That's awesome, man. And obviously, I'm wearing one of the hats from.
Yeah, you got the lineman swag hat.
Yeah, I got the hat.
That was one of the first hats that I came out with.
Yeah, and everywhere I go, where I wear this hat. Well, and this one is special because it's autographed by you too. So
there you go.
But everywhere I wear the hat and I wear the T-shirt, everybody's asking me, "Oh, that's awesome. Where can I get it?" So I'm always kind of sending them to the line. And even in Brazil, I told you this before. A lot of people see me with the shirts and they said, "Oh, he's got does he ship here? We want to get a shirt here, blah blah blah." So we got to work something out to send some products down to Brazil there too, so people can wear the brand down in Brazil as well.
Yeah, that's my passion. I feel like this. I mean, as far as the sports line, and as far as the stuff I do on the radio and stuff I do with Jaguars, it's not really work to me because that's the kind of stuff I'm passionate about. When you're passionate about something, you don't mind get up in the morning going to work for it. So I'm endeared to the opportunities that I have with what I do, and I like to expand on it.
Awesome. I had a couple more questions. One of them is, you're on the University of Miami Hall of Fame, right? I go to the Miami games. I see your name up there, right? It's all up there. If you could just kind of briefly tell us what that was like, being inducted into the college hall, into the University of Miami Hall of Fame, and what did you feel, and and what do you see when you go to the game and you see your name up there?
Well, you know what, man. You know what? What's crazy is that when I went to the University of Miami, I never aspired to go into the NFL. I didn't. I mean, I want to say I was naive to the fact that I could actually go pro playing college football, but that was never in my intentions. My intentions was when I went to Miami, I wanted to be the best Miami Hurricane I could possibly be. And the only thing that really set me off to maneuver my life into pursuing college football actually had to do, it was in 1990. I was at a friend's house, and we were watching the NFL draft for 1990. And we were sitting there watching the draft, and the eighth pick overall, I think it was 89 or 90, it was Richmond Webb. And Richmond Webb got drafted the eighth pick overall by the Miami Dolphins. And we saw him, he went out of Texas A&M, and one of my teammates said to me, "Hey, Leon, that's going to be you in a couple of years." And I never really thought about going pro until one of my teammates, had the faith in me that I could get it done. When my teammate told me that, "Leon, that's going to be you that's going to make it to the next level," kind of changed my focus, from not only being the best Miami Hurricane, but possibly, having some success in the NFL. So my teammate believing in me at that particular time kind of inspired me to want to be the best, not only Miami Hurricane, but to excel at the next level as well.
Awesome. Then the other question I have is, I've watched a couple of 30 on 30s, right? So I've watched the U one. By the way, my son, he's a year and a half, and he's obsessed with the U already. When I put the U song on, he loves it. So I'm training him well. But the other one that I watch is in regards to, I forgot what the name it is right now, but it talks about money, right? And it talks about once you get into the NFL and you'll make money. And there's a story about you in there, how you lost, I think it was $600,000 to someone, right? Is that something
Yeah.
you mind talking about? Or you rather not? Or
Well, yeah, but you listen. Hey, listen. I listen through my struggles, through my trials and tribulations. I use that as an example to be a blessing to others. And the reason why I went through the financial burdens that I did as a player is because I had a broke mentality. I mean, I don't care how much money you make in the NFL or in life, if your mindset is broke, then you'll end up being broke. And because I dealt with the issues that I dealt with because my mentality had a broke mentality. I didn't invest. I spent a lot of money on trinkets that have no real sense of value: cars, clothes, jewelry, women, houses, all those kind of things. And I use that as a tool to mentor to the younger guys to let them know that they spend the mass majority of time trying to impress people who don't give a damn about it. Yeah. So why not put your money away and invest and save? Because the amount of money these guys are making now, the money they're making now is not only life-changing money, but we're talking about generational money. We're talking about guys who are making 50, 60, 70, $100 million of guaranteed money, and that's generational money. That's money that not only you can pass on to your kids, but to your grandkids and their grandkids. And I tell them now that this invest and save wisely, because the money that's being spent right now, I mean, that's generational money. So broke is not a matter of money. Broke is a mentality. If you have a broke-minded mentality, then of course you're going to spend a lot of money that's unnecessary. And when I was playing ball, and you got to surround yourself with the right people. All right, I had an entourage of people who had their own interests at hand and not my own interests. And that's the reason why a lot of my money was spent, because I had a lot of people who pulled at me, didn't have my best interests at hand. So I tell guys now, make sure your circle is small. Make sure whoever's on board with you is going to swim with you when your boat sinks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder. I have a friend down here in Naples who's a former guard for the St. Louis Rams, and I had similar conversations with him in regards to this, and I asked him, one of the questions I asked him, I said, when you meet former players, some of them are approachable, right? Like yourself, that you will sit down and talk. Like he's like that, but then you have ones that don't have the time of day to talk to you, right? Or
well,
prefer not to. And
well, why? Though. I'm gonna tell you why they don't talk to you, because every player that comes to the league doesn't think it can happen to them.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he said. He said he actually told me that when he first started with the Rams on his rookie year, that they had someone walk into a big conference to all the rookies and said, there's going to be people that are going to try to take advantage of you. There's going to be women. There's going to be agents. It's going to be friends. It's going to be all that stuff. But all these kind of people are going to try to take advantage of you. So, you have to kind of protect yourself and not just freely talk to everyone and not freely just go helping everyone because, some people are just looking out for themselves, right? And he kind of alluded that, because of that first meeting, that first mentality that they instill in you when you first come in as a rookie, you kind of carry that on, and maybe after you play the game, you still kind of carry that mentality on, and some will open up and have those relationships, while others will still not have it, right? So it sounds
I tell players they need to put away money like the next game is their last one.
Right.
All right, and listen, just because you make $4 million a year don't mean you have to spend $4 million a year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Put that money away. I mean, you can still enjoy the fruits of your labor, but just put yourself on a put yourself on a what you call it? What's it called? allowance. There you
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
allowance. Put yourself on an allowance. And if you're making $4 million a year, put yourself on a $25,000 a month allowance. That's a boatload of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, hell.
So I have to ask you this question too. So as a more as a commentator than anything else that's you're doing right now, and it's not about the Jags, but I still want to get your opinion. What did you think of Brady coming down to Tampa?
I think it's the best thing that ever happened to Tampa Bay since Warren Sapp.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you. I mean, you know, the last time the Bucks ever really had any real kind of success is, you know, when they had those phenoms on the defense side of the ball. Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Achide Hanatu. I mean, those kind of guys right there. I think that the same pedigree, the same championship pedigree that those guys brought to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensively that won them a championship, I think Tom Brady has that same pedigree, and they just listen to him. I mean, Tom Brady is the GOAT. I don't care what you say, he's the GOAT. And I think that when you have that kind of leadership, that kind of pedigree within your locker room, you have no choice but to excel. If you don't get up and play to a elevated level with Tom Brady at the helm, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There's something seriously wrong with you. If Tom Brady steps in that huddle and your level of expertise is not raised with Tom Brady being at the helm, then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and you know he's gonna put his best foot forward too, right? Because he has something to prove right now.
Oh,
too. You know, it's something new to him.
And I got to say something to the New England Patriot fans. Who got a problem with Tom Brady leaving. Okay. I've been getting these notions, and I've been getting these words that the New England Patriot fans are upset with Tom Brady. They're saying that he left them. You know, they've had the spoils of riches over the last 20 years. This man only went to 9 Super Bowls, won you 6 Super Bowls, have been to the playoffs every year. He's been at the helm outside of maybe 1 or 2 years. Yeah. And then they're talking about, one fan said something about, you know, the New England Patriots made Tom Brady. Really? And I'm gonna speak like Jay-Z the Rockefeller. You know, when Jay-Z left Rockefeller said that they made Jay-Z. I tell you what, if y'all made Tom Brady, make another one.
Yeah. No, I mean, and
make another Tom Brady. If y'all made Tom Brady, okay, make another one. Yeah. If he ain't have no influence in bringing y'all out of the dust, because wasn't nobody thinking about no Patriots before Tom Brady got there. So if y'all made Tom Brady, make another one.
Yeah. No, and you know what? So I grew up in Boston, right? I moved from Brazil to Boston, and I grew up there, and I started watching the Patriots before Brady, right? So when Bledsoe was a quarterback, I started watching in '96 when I first moved there, when they lost the Super Bowl to Green Bay. And then I continued to watch, and Bledsoe was the guy, right? In high school, Bledsoe was the quarterback, right? It was the one that I liked, and obviously Brady came along. You know, and I'm not one of the ones that is upset at Tom Brady leaving, because, you know, for year after year, the guy took a pay cut for the team to win, to be there, and he's 42 years old. This is the time that he has to cash in what he hasn't cashed in the past few years, right? And then when you think, you know, when you have a family and you have kids and you think of the opportunity of coming down here, and I speak from experience moving from Boston here, you have a better lifestyle, you have better, you know, chances to be outside, and so it's a combination of things, and I can't really blame the guy for doing that.
Let me just say this to you as well. Is that, you know, when I played in the NFL, I was never a great player. I was a good player. I was never great. But I played around some great players. I played with Demonte Dawson, Rod Woodson. You know, I played with Baselli, Jimmy Smith. I played with Ray Lewis. And the one thing about guys who are great, they never want to be comfortable, all right? They're always looking for that next challenge. And I think this is an opportunity that Tom Brady is taking for that next challenge, because he could have easily settled in and took a contract for the Patriots and, you know, made a couple of runs. But I think in his greatness, he wants another challenge. and you can't fault that man for wanting another challenge. And if it's with another team, I tell you what, the Patriots. I mean, the Buccaneers went 7-9 last year. With Jameis Winston, handing out balls like government cheese. So you ain't got to worry about Tom Brady turning the ball over 30 times like Jameis. And I guarantee you, that's a 10-6 team or 11-5 team with Tom Brady at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final question. I have to ask you this too. What about the Jaguars? I mean, how do you think they're going to do this year? And what do you have in store? Yeah, I don't know if you. I learned this recently.
Well,
but the owner of the Jaguars lives here in Naples, where I live. Right, Khan lives here in Naples, and I didn't know that, but he's.
Well, I can give you two answers. I can give you the one answer that's going to keep my job for this year. Moving forward, I can say, hey, the Jaguars are going to be 7-9 to 8-8. But if you want my radio show answer. No, they probably end up 4-12, 5-11.
Yeah.
Because they're disassembling their whole team to build it through the draft and through some makeshift free agents. So I don't see them having that much success this year. But I think they're building for the future because they've unloaded a lot of big time contracts with AJ Boye, Calais Campbell, Marcel Darius. So they're unloading a lot of heavyweight contracts, and they're using that weight to assemble draft picks, draft capital. So I assume that the vast majority of the guys that they're going to draft and the NFL are going to be the guys that are going to have to contribute. And I don't know any team that's been rookie riddled who's ever had that much success in the NFL. But I think that in the next upcoming years, if they continue down this path, they can actually build a competitor within the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, then sounds like all the teams in Florida are at least kind of on the way up, right? Maybe not this year, but if the Jaguars, like you say, kind of build up for the next few years, Tampa with Brady now is obviously better than they were last year. Mm-hmm. I think the Dolphins are doing okay too.
Hey, listen, the Dolphins are going to be doing a lot more than okay if they get Tua.
I know. So I think the Dolphins are going to be a team in the next few years that they're going to be.
They're going to be all right.
They're going to be all right. I don't think they'll win the division this year. I think this year the division stays with the Bills. To be honest with you, as much as I would like to stay with the Patriots, but I think the Bills will take it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the next few years that the Dolphins will take the division, the AFC.
But I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah. So really, well, I appreciate so much you taking time to talk to me. Let's see. I got a question here. Someone is asking, how much do you know about football in Brazil?
Not much, I want to, especially with my brand, Real Men Block, I want to gravitate internationally. I want to build my foundation here in the States, but I mean, I know there's a great deal of love and admiration for the NFL and American football internationally. So whatever way I can contribute to that, whether it be camps, appearances, former guys, performance camps, where we can get guys go down there and teach them about football, I'm all for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about that before, right? Unfortunately, we haven't been able to materialize yet.
Can't move right now, but
yeah, but we talked about
this is going to pass soon enough, and when it does pass, me and you've got to orchestrate something where we can do some camps internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, awesome. I think that's the only question we got it right now. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I truly appreciate you talking with me. If there's a website for the site, right? For the realmenblock.com. Is that
I want to give it to you, but I'm in the works of putting that together. So best thing I can tell you to do right now is stay tuned.
All right, awesome. Yeah, and when you do have it, send it to me and I'll share it with people too. Let's just see here. Felipe probably mentioned to you that, but most here. Felipe probably mentioned to you, but football is the sport that has grown the most here in Brazil. Hope that you know about the Brazilian guy that is playing at the Miami Dolphins. So I don't know if I had shared. I think I shared that with you too. But we have a Brazilian guy that came. His name is Durval Queiroz Jr. and he came out of the international pathway program, the program that the NFL is taking international players. And so we have a Brazilian guy that was truly playing in Brazil, didn't play college here, got picked from Brazil. He got signed for the practice squad for the Dolphins last year, and then they just re-signed him for 2 more years. So we're super excited in Brazil to have someone there.
Sounds good, bro.
Yeah, sounds good, Leon. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it again one more time, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Till next time, bro.
Thank you. Take care.
You got it.